Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A few days ago, this showed up on the SEC filing website for Aptera Motors. The date of the report was May 3rd, 2024. I think it showed up like a day or two afterward. And it's basically a very, very short form with one sentence that says, effective May 1st, 2024, Douglas Louis notified Aptera Motors of his resignation from the board of directors of the company. Mr. Louis' resignation was not the result of any dispute or disagreement with the company or the company's board of directors on any matter relating to operations, policies, or practices of the company. He is transitioning to an advisor role for the company. And so then I headed over to Aptera Motors LinkedIn page, and they announced this 4 days ago. So Douglas Louis is set to launch a new LGBTQ plus fund to support worthy missions within the community and promote diversity and inclusion in startup funding. After 2 years of service at Aptera, Doug will step down from the Aptera board and remain an advisor to the company. We thank Doug for his ongoing support and commitment to Aptera. Best wishes to Doug in bringing inspiring new ideas to the world from all of us at Aptera. Okay, so this I was wondering a couple of things, like how much were they paying Mr. Louis, and was this a cost-cutting feature or what? So here's the kind of the annual report from this year, and this looks, well, this is actually the annual report from a little while ago. No, from this year actually. So this is the one from 2023, and it shows that the board of directors here was Chris Anthony, Steve Fambro, Doug Louis, and Brian Snow. Now Brian Snow exited the board of directors in August of 2023, so there were only 3 left, and Doug Louis has exited. So if you guys remember Doug Louis, he joined in June of 2022. He is a venture partner of Vine Ventures Corporations, and he actively manages several portfolio companies. And he's been with them since 2023. He also did a bunch of other stuff, like in hospitality, risk management, and did some stuff with Universal Studios and music groups. And so pretty active in a lot of things. And if you look at his experiences, so if you look at his experiences, he is got his hands in a lot of stuff. So there's some racial equity screen office. This is like some group in Canada that basically funds film and media for diaspora in Canada. And that's something he just started in January of 2024. So pretty new. And I think this ties in with his previous experience with Universal Studios and music groups and things like that. Then he's still listing board member, and then he added / advisor. So I guess now he's an advisor as of May. So this is his still current. So he's still listing that on his LinkedIn. He just started this whole Green Monday thing in January of this year. This is some company that holds Omni Foods, which I guess is some kind of food production company brand. And then there's Happy Cow. I'm pretty familiar with Happy Cow because I am kind of mostly vegan or mostly vegetarian. I mean, I still eat meat, but I don't eat it very much. And so this is something like I kind of look at this website once in a while when I'm traveling to try to find new places to eat. And then he's with Fast Company, there's Vine Ventures, which I thought was kind of a little interesting because I went to Vine Ventures, and this is Vine Ventures, and they're basically a venture capital firm. And I looked at the team, and he does not show up as one of the team members. So I'm not sure if he's like still with them or not. But he doesn't show up on the team thing. So maybe he's like not the core team, or maybe he's like a silent partner. I'm not sure, but not listed on their website. But that is one of the things that he lists as his experience. Okay, so it turns out that I was looking at the wrong Vine Ventures. There's multiple Vine Ventures. So this is the Vine Ventures I found by Googling. This is the Vine Ventures that Mr. Louis is a part of. So if you click on team here, then yeah, there he is. So he is a venture partner right here at this Vine Venture. So it's similar. There's 2 VC companies called Vine Ventures. Okay, well, this goes to show you can't just Google the first thing that you find and figure out that think that you're on the right one because this is a pretty common name. He's also like does a bunch of other stuff. So he's a very, very busy guy. And I think what it seems like is so this is the latest post from him about 3 weeks ago, and overwhelmed by the positive response from the L2S LGBTQ startup founder community. Sold out in so they had some kind of inaugural event in Vancouver where they're basically it looks like it was some event to try to increase the funding rate for um, founders, entrepreneurs that are LGBTQ plus. And in the keynote speech, I guess like this, these are some impressive stats. Evidently, this if you're a company that's founded by an LGBTQ founder, they create 35% more jobs, hold 114% more patents, and have 44% more exits than their counterparts. Yet the community receives less than 0.5% of total venture funding. So that those are some impressive statistics. And so it seems like from Aptera's post about him leaving, it looks like this was something that really excited Mr. Louis, and he decided that this is something that he wants to devote a lot of his time to, and so that's what's happening now. The other thing that this made me kind of go back to is thinking about Brian Snow. He was a director, as you remember. So he was a director until August of 2023. And if you look at him, and if you look at his experience, you see that he's the managing general partner of Impala Ventures, and board member at many, many different places. So if you look at this, and what's interesting is if you look at this, they list Aptera Motors. I didn't as one of the companies that Impala Ventures was invested in, but they exited. So they exited he exited his position, or Impala Ventures exited his position. So if you look at this, if you go down the line even more here, okay, right here, he lists one of his experience board of directors and investor from January 22 to July 2023, and then he exited via secondary sale, which makes it sound like he sold his shares to someone else, and we don't know who. So that's very interesting. What this tells me is Brian Snow thought that there was a better use of his capital than Aptera Motors. So that's interesting. So I don't know what brought about that. Maybe there's some behind the scenes story that I don't know about that. But this story about Mr. Louis made me think about Mr. Snow, and so I checked it out, and it looks like they actually exited the investment. So I'm not sure what the story behind that is, and if I ever figure it out, I'm of course going to let you know. Now, looking back at whether this was a cost-cutting move, it's not. Mr. Louis was not getting any cash compensation. He was getting option awards. So that's very common in the startup space. When you join as a board of directors for a startup companies obviously do not have a lot of capital, generally do not pay their board members. Brian Snow actually was paid $135,000. He also got $4 million in options. And there, the exercise price was $8.8 per share. That's better than the $10 a share, $10.50 a share that retail investors can get. But Doug Louis was just getting basically shares. That's a common feature. So you generally, if you join as a board member of a startup, they don't give you cash, they give you stocks, which makes sense. So these could be potentially worth up to $4 million, depending on whether they get vested and whether there is a liquidity event. But that was their compensation for being board members. So it didn't really cost Aptera any money per se. It did cost them some options. And if I understand options correctly, and please correct me in the comments if you're wrong, it means that they have the option to buy at this price. So if if they have a liquidity event and the stocks are worth more than $8.80 a share, so like let's say it goes to like $100, then he could still buy those stocks at $8.80 a share, and then of course realize a gain of like $92 per share if it went up to that. But if the publicly traded price was less than $8.80 a share, then obviously he wouldn't want to exercise that option because then he would lose money on that. So this could be potentially valuable or could be potentially worthless. That's the way to think about that. And I believe that's how options work for in this situation. So Aptera was not losing money for this, so I believe that Doug Louie is leaving of his own accord. He wasn't just like asked to resign by Aptera just to try to save money. So I don't think that's what was going on. So there's a couple of ways of looking at this. One way of looking at this is that Doug Louie thought that Aptera Motors wasn't going anywhere, and so he decided to invest his time and efforts somewhere else where he thought that it would be more useful. Or the other way of thinking about it is he thought Aptera was going to do well, and basically, he had a lot of connections to Asia. I don't know if you remember, early on, Aptera was basically doing a lot of things like Sherry Automotive and Formosa Energy, and they seem to be making a lot of connections out in the East. But now a lot of Aptera's connections have moved over to Europe around Italy. So it could be that Doug Louie felt like his expertise and his connections were not as helpful anymore, and that he had other things that he wanted to do. And so this was a good time to exit that, and not that he thought that Aptera was having problems. Now, him staying on as an advisory role kind of makes me think that option number 2 is the more likely scenario. But of course, we don't know the story. I mean, I have no special insight into this, and so I don't know what's going on with that. But it is interesting. So the Aptera board is now down to just Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro, which that's how it was until 2022 when Brian and Doug joined them. And now Mr. Snow was only with them for about maybe a year and a half, and Mr. Louie was with them for 2 years. And looks like Brian Snow is actually an investor, but then he exited, and that would be interesting to know what the story behind that is. I will reach out to them and see if they respond to me. I kind of find that doubtful, and I'm sure that they're not allowed to talk about it, but I'll give it a shot. Okay, well that's what came about in my investigation of this little SEC filing. Hope that was interesting to you guys. Let me know what your thoughts are on these changes at the board. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.